Let's bring in Michael Wilbon from Pardon the Interruption. And by the way, he's a Northwestern grad. Morale has got to be high. Michael, how you feeling today?
I've never been higher, Dan. Never been higher than it is today.
Okay.
Ever.
All right. Now, is there a scenario where Northwestern's story would surpass the Cubs winning the World Series in your world?
Sure. Of course. I mean, they'd have to, for starters, I guess, beat Gonzaga tomorrow, which is a huge order considering we're talking about a number one seed. But, yeah, I mean, if Northwestern beat Gonzaga tomorrow and is getting to the Final Four, that's the scenario by which Northwestern could surpass the Cubs. And given that college basketball is this enormous thing for 1 month, if that somehow happened, then I think the next game then likely would be against Notre Dame. I mean, you get these series of high-profile games. And Northwestern, we've already played and lost to Notre Dame at the buzzer this year once.
Yeah.
So that beating them is more likely than beating Gonzaga, obviously. But you have to beat Gonzaga to get to them. So, that could happen. Are we there yet? No. But if you ask me what's more unlikely, Northwestern getting to the Final Four or the Cubs winning the World Series at the beginning of the year, I would have said Northwestern getting to the Final Four.
What were you thinking in that final 15 seconds when all of a sudden there's an intentional foul and then it was a bizarre sequence. I don't know if we'll talk about this the way we did Freddie Brown or Chris Webber's timeout, but it was one of those moments on a big stage where everybody saw it. What did you think?
You're numb to it. I mean, I'm sitting 6 rows from the floor, and I was right behind the Northwestern bench, and you could see the surprise in the faces of the Northwestern kids. Like, what did this kid just do for Vanderbilt? What just happened here? And the shock in their faces. I mean, they know they got to score there. They got to really draw a foul or score to win the game. You're not expecting that a guy's just going to put you on the line with 14 seconds left. Now, the one thing was Vanderbilt was going to get the ball back, which they did. But still, it's just, but Dan, you know this. You've watched so many of these games for so many years. And what you're reminded of is they're kids.
Yeah.
They're kids. They're not pros. Some of them go on to be pros. And as we know, even the ones who go on to be pros, rarely as rookies look like composed, men, and they're kids. And I watch these games, and you see so many mistakes, and you love the college game for the drama that it has, and for the jerseys you root, and all of that. But for people who think that the college game is anywhere near the pro game, they're insane, and it's not supposed to be. But you get reminded of this, even in the tournament, even when you've got the, allegedly the best whatever number of teams in the country. And so you're sitting there, you're going, oh, my God, I can't believe this just happened. And I feel terribly for the Vanderbilt player who they're not even in the game without that kid.
Yes.
So I don't want to hear anybody say, I mean, he by himself in the second half just shot them. And by the way, you're looking at him and you're saying, my God, this kid's going to play. This kid is going to be a pro. But right now he's a sophomore in college. And I feel for him.
He's Michael Wilbon from Pardon the Interruption, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. I want you to judge this because, come tournament time, there are a lot of people, a lot of gas bags, blowhards like us who make it seem like they've been following college basketball all year long. There's an art to being able to talk about a matchup without mentioning any real specifics. So, Paulie, would you put on display for Michael Wilbon somebody who knows nothing about college basketball but gives the impression he knows everything about a matchup?
Northwestern, not a traditional team going this deep into the tournament, but a scrappy bunch. They play hard like a Big Ten team should, but they're going against a big boy, Gonzaga, former mid-major, but now at the top of the heap. This should be a great one.
Oh, that's one of those. That's a nice little thumbnail that says nothing.
Yeah, but it sounded like he did.
It sounded like he did. It also, by the way, I prefer that one, Dan, to when people start naming names and people and where they're from. They try to act, they phony it up and go the other way. And start giving you a bunch of metrics. It's like, okay, shut up.
Steve Alford. If you were Steve Alford and Indiana called, what would you do?
No. This is great because I did talk about this. I mean, obviously, this is being a Big Ten story, and there are plenty of Big Ten people where I am right now here in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
this tournament. We did. We talked quite a bit about Steve Alford. I talked to some coaches about it, and look, I'll always understand the draw of home, always. But I got to wait and see how this plays out at the very least. Well, you would. You can't. You're not going to interrupt this run.
Yeah.
But wow, if they win at UCLA, I mean, the greatest Hoosier of them all, he stayed at UCLA. I mean, Steve Alford, there's a piece running somewhere right now where Alford talks about knowing as a little child that the great John Wooden was a Hoosier.
Yeah.
And he went away to UCLA to make his name, and there's no greater name. I understand, again, I understand the pull of home, but I don't know what's bigger in the universe, Indiana or UCLA. I still think it's UCLA, even being a Big Ten kid, a Midwestern kid, and a neighboring state kid. And maybe part of me just doesn't want to see Alford come back and make Indiana that good again. Although they were just that good. I mean, Crean had them being that good. Crean already had Indiana being that good again, and then he fell off his perch. But I don't know, Dan. I haven't heard you weigh in on this yet. What do you think Alford should do?
I think he should stay at UCLA.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but these are true legendary places, franchises, teams, universities. I understand all of that, but sometimes home is not everything it's made out to be. If you go back and you don't succeed,
then it's just impossible. It's just awful. The feeling is rotten in a way that it wouldn't be if he didn't succeed at UCLA.
I know you've been passionate.
Yeah, I think you and I agree on this.
I know you've been passionate about this with the topic you and Tony talked about Georgetown with John Thompson III, and people asking about his future during press conferences and being shut down. We had Patrick Ewing on first hour, and I said, if they called you, would you be interested? And he said, well, I would listen, but I want to be a head coach in the NBA. But yes, it's my alma mater, but I hope JT3 gets another chance. Separate your emotion if you can, and what should Georgetown do in this situation?
This is, what, Dan, this is a really difficult one, and I think nobody wants to be measured about this, but I was covering Georgetown when a lot of this set up what we're looking at now, and when Big John had that program roaring, and it was as important as any program in the country. Georgetown made some decisions, a series of decisions about what place basketball was going to hold in that university's culture and in the culture of just Catholic higher education. And one of the reasons I always admired Georgetown, I have no ties other than I covered the team for a lot of years. They made a conscious decision. They building a stadium, building an on-campus arena, which was going to be difficult given how it's shoehorned into one of the great, urban locations in America. There wasn't going to be a lot of space, but they decided consciously, as I recall, not to build an arena.
Yeah,
we have a downtown arena. We can use whatever it was called at the time. Back in the day, it wasn't even downtown. It was Capitol Center, for crying out loud. Dingy, old, 25 miles away Capitol Center. Now it's whatever. It's 3 miles away or 2 miles away, and it doesn't work. And the school made this choice. What's the big difference between right now Villanova and Georgetown? Villanova built that place on campus. And I don't think Georgetown can. The model for college basketball changed. You look at the similarities between DePaul, Georgetown, St. John's. What do those three schools not have? They don't have the modern on-campus gymnasium. And Dan, I applaud Georgetown and Big John for what they did. They said, look, here's our place. This is what we believe in. These are our priorities as an institution, a higher learning institution. And I applaud them. I admire them for that. But then when the model for the basketball program evolves and you don't have that and you get left behind and you ask your current coach, whether it's a series of coaches at DePaul or JT3, okay, now you need to do this. You know what, Dan? And I'm friendly with John socially in Washington, and my wife grew up with him, and I root for JT3, but I don't know that anybody can do what those schools want to happen anymore without that new model of basketball. Maybe some people would say you're wrong; it can happen. I don't believe it. I believe that you have to go the way Villanova went, and they didn't do it. And now you can't. I'm told that it's a zoning matter. There's just no way you can put an on-campus arena in there. And do I think that's the only thing? Maybe, yeah. I mean, DePaul, yeah. They're building an arena, Dan, that's like 20 miles the other way, south, away from the arena that's 20 miles away from campus. Now that's north. And I'm talking about this last night. You have a chance when you have around college basketball people to just run over all these issues. And DePaul basketball, you know this because you grew up with DePaul being a rival of Dayton. DePaul basketball was bigger in the 1970s and 80s than Bulls basketball in Chicago.
Yep.
And where did it go? And so is it one coach's fault? Was it Joey Meyer's fault, really? Joey Meyer, who's calling the Northwestern games, by the way. He's right here. I mean, he's a great person to ask about this. But I just think that I think they're asking something of Coach Georgetown. I'm not sure can sort of reproduce. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's sort of the way I see it right now.
Have fun. Good luck tomorrow, and hold on to that voice there, Michael.
It's going, and I got to do television tomorrow, Dan. So I got to come up with a Dan Patrick remedy. Text me any throat remedies you may have between now and tomorrow.
Whiskey.
Why did I know you were going to say that?
Even when I don't have a sore throat, that's just whiskey. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Dan.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.